Hey guys, hope you're well. So, due to the way my channel was in the past and due to my mindset in the past and how my videos were, they were anti-theist and anti-Islam. Over time, slowly over time, I moved away from that mindset. Yeah, I think it was born from anger. I think I was going through, it was quite challenging to leave the religion. There's a lot of defensiveness within me. There was defensiveness when I came into the religion, defensiveness when I came out of it. And there was embarrassment because I'd been involved in something that I thought was true, and then I realized actually I don't think this is true. And there was a genuine fear and desire to help people because I still see Islamism as a threat, and Islamism unfortunately is a trend within mainstream Islam. So that's what motivated a lot of it. So I think I've attracted a lot of anti-theists, and this isn't a passive aggressive swipe at anybody who's watching this, but I've noticed in the comment section. So anybody may be attracted to videos because I put in some of the tags, ex-Muslim, etc., or any of my subscribers, or anybody may come across these videos. Yeah, you might be an anti-theist. So my intention isn't to say don't ever watch my videos and go away, etc., like this. It's just to sort of say something which I think is important. There's a Vietnamese monk. I can't remember his name. I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to. I'll butcher it. And there's a guy who I take a lot of spiritual guidance from, and his name is Geoff Thompson. And what Geoff Thompson said about what this Vietnamese monk said to some people who wanted to attend a peace protest because he's a peace activist. He said, don't bring your aggressive signs to the peace protest, because you're feeding into the same intent, you're feeding into the same energy that is behind violence. Of course, he's not saying that it's the same degree, having aggressive signs the same as shooting somebody. He's not saying that at all, but he's saying that the beginning of it, or the degree, or the intent that grows and manifests into a desire to inflict violence upon people is started by that kind of aggression, right? So he's saying don't feed into the same mindset that we're trying to release or let go or heal in the world. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think it's something I know in myself. I fed into that, and perhaps some anti-theists out there who might want to consider this, is one of the things you want is you probably want the Islamism in particular to disappear, or at least be minimized or controlled or eradicated, right? On some level, intellectually, whether culturally, whatever. So if you want that to go, I would advise not feeding in or mirroring or feeding into the narrative of us versus them, because in my experience that genuinely does it. As a Muslim, it strengthens the arguments of Islamists. I'm not saying you're responsible for people joining ISIS or Islamist ideologies. I'm not saying people are responsible for their own actions. I'm talking about influence. So the difference between recognizing is what I think some people, I'm not saying you're going to think this, but I've heard this a lot, is some people I've seen say, who cares how we treat people or what we do, they should have the strength, or they should make a choice to not do X. I think that's quite a naive way of looking at human psychology. I think we make choices due to a convergence or under the umbrella of a lot of various influences. So if you're, like, say if you shout at somebody, you keep shouting at somebody and calling them dirt or whatever, blah, 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 and they turn around and punch you. All right, it's not justifiable to hit somebody for no reason, right? But you can see the influence that you had upon their decision to hit you, the choice to do that. What I'm saying is that if you're feeding into the us versus them mentality, you're basically, what I've seen, you're strengthening the narrative. Because if you're like, it's Muslims versus non-Muslims, they need to be eradicated, they need to get rid of, all Muslims are probable terrorists, etc., you can't trust any of them, taqiyya, then the Islamists come along and use that. And the narrative already pre-exists, but they can draw from that and say, look, they don't trust you. Look, they see it as us versus them. We're not the ones saying it. They see it themselves, so you better go on our side. And ISIS have actually said that is one of their intents, to get rid of what they call the grey zone, where people are happy being Muslim and happy with non-Muslims. They want people to choose between the Islamist ideology or being a non-Muslim, right, or being against the Islamist ideology. That's we're not against, but you get the idea of Muslim versus non-Muslim. That's the kind of that's what they're trying to get. They call it the eradication of the grey zone. Last time I didn't read the literature, I read like an analysis of it by a newspaper organisation. Just want to put that out there before any intelligence community starts watching me. So so what I think is happening is, if you do have that us versus them mentality of Islam versus the West or Muslims versus non-Muslims, then it seems like both sides are strengthening one another. So you got us versus them from the Islamists, us versus them from anti-theists or anti-Islam critics, right? And it seems like both sides are strengthening each other. You're providing the resistance for both sides to get stronger. So that's what I think is happening. So if you are somebody who is against Islam, I'd caution you against an us versus them mentality. And I'm not saying I know a full alternative. I'm offering you a alternative, which is something that is promoted by someone called Majid Nawaz, which is, what do you really want? What we really want is society, a humanist-based society, right, of egalitarianism, secularism, and free inquiry, where people of any or no religion are respected. So he's saying that what he cares about is not a person's creed, not a person's race, not a person's age, their gender, their sexual orientation. What he cares about are their values. So if somebody is a Muslim and has humanist values, or Hindu has humanist values, or gay and has humanist values, or whatever, doesn't matter. You have a close kin there, you have a connection there, and those people are okay regardless of belief or whatever. So if you do want to draw up the world in us versus them, and even then I wouldn't advise that, because it's no, just because somebody's been one way doesn't mean they're always going to be like that. I'm an ex-Muslim, I changed. I was very devout and shocked people when I deconverted. And there are plenty of other people, if you read stories of people who used to be Muslims, or used to be Christians, or used to be Scientologists, people were very, very devout, and over time they changed. So people can change. It's not really a us versus them. It's just an identification of some people who share values that you have, and you realize people can change, and they can come into the fold as well, right? So it's not a line in the sand. It's not an us versus them, like you're over there and that's how the things are, so I'm against you now. Because I'll tell you something strange. When I became a Muslim, there are people who stopped talking to me, simply because I became a Muslim. They had no idea what my values are. They had no idea how I interpreted Islam. They just assumed they knew and didn't want to talk to me anymore. So basically what I'm saying is that us versus them mentality fell into it. They didn't even bother to really see if I shared their values. They just assumed I didn't. So what I'm advising is not to feed into that mindset. And there's another person who I take a lot of spiritual guidance from. Geoff Thompson's one, and another person is Emanuel Swedenborg, who's dead now, who was an 18th century Christian universalist, mystic and theologian. And one of the things he talks about a lot is, one of the worst mindsets you can get in, he says, is the love is cultivating a pleasure of destruction, domination. And he says in that underlies a lot of negative intent, and this can come from a very subtle way. And one of the ways that it comes across in me that I always now monitor is intellectually to try to dominate and destroy, like people's arguments and people blah blah blah, or socially to try to dominate and destroy people. That's not in me, but that's another way. You can do it physically as well, through violence, and you can love it for your group too. You can want your group to dominate and destroy other groups. You can want it for, as I said, yourself to dominate and destroy other people. And that's going to sound quite grandiose or a bit mythical, but hopefully you get what I'm talking about, the sort of intent. And some of the things and one of the problems of ISIS, I think, is they have that intent. They want to dominate and destroy. They want their group to dominate and destroy other groups, intellectually, socially, culturally, as you see culturally through the destruction of certain historical icons and things like this, and artifacts, and of course through physically too, through violence. So that intent of destruction underlies all those things. And I'm not saying that wanting to intellectually dominate, destroy somebody is the same as shooting somebody. Like I said, degree does matter, but that intent, is problematic. And so if you're an anti-theist or somebody who's against Islam, especially being anti-theist, that's quite a strong thing, or being anti-Islam, as I said, it's quite a strong thing, is there can be that intent to dominate and destroy. Probably, I'm going to assume you're a very nice person watching this. You don't advocate genocide or some things like this. It's more like an intellectual, cultural destruction or domination of Islam or Muslims. And I would advise you to try to stay away from that. Because and what I would advise you is just what you probably want is a set of circumstances where your values, your beliefs, your intentions, your choices are respected and honoured. And so I'd advise you to treat Muslims with the same respect that you would want. And so what that would entail is letting go of that mindset of desire for domination, destruction of Islam or Muslims. As I said, it could be intellectually, socially, culturally. Okay, so like to stamp out their entire ideology, to destroy the entire ideology of Islam, destroy the entire culture of Islam, and destroy Muslim communities, want them eradicated from the face of the planet. That's that mindset of destruction, domination. So what I'm saying is, try not to feed again into the same mindset that you would like to leave the planet. So because if you're in that mindset of domination, destruction, then it just becomes a battle with somebody else who's into the mindset of domination and destruction. So what's the alternative? Again, I don't know exactly what the alternative is. I'm going to go to Emanuel Swedenborg and Geoff Thompson and near-death experiences. Is the underlying desire is goodwill, which is you want health and happiness for everybody, and that underlies anything you do. So whether that's you try to do as much as you can. So you're thinking about the benefits to everybody, yourself included, your country, and to everybody on the planet of encouraging humanist and universalist interpretations of Islam, of encouraging actions and intentions and communication habits which you think will bring about the greatest good for everyone, of respect, of love, of kindness, of empathy, of compassion, those kind of things. So if, like they say, be the change you want to see. Like Michael Jackson said, start with a man in the mirror, or do unto others who had them do unto you, the golden rule. Is try not to feed into that mindset, because if you feed into the mindset of domination and destruction, then that's exactly, as I said, the mindset behind Islamism, which is the mindset of domination and destruction. So now you're engaged in this battle, and it's basically just two sides of the same coin, just battling it out for domination. Whereas coming from the approach of goodwill, that undercuts that, and that includes everybody. Because when you think about who is harmed the most from Islamism, it's Muslims themselves. Most Muslims live under theocracy. Most Muslims, especially if they're minorities, such as gay, or have different interpretations, such as the Ahmadiyas, or may say things that people think are blasphemous, or don't follow the religion particularly strictly, or don't wear hijab, can be abused, can be killed, can be imprisoned under theocracies or Muslim majority countries. So some of the worst people who suffer that are Muslims. And also on a subtle level, and this can seem condescending when I'm going to say it, is some Muslims don't even have access to certain education, such as they're deprived of understanding of theory of evolution, or deprived of free inquiry, philosophical inquiry, things that can enhance their lives, different perspectives of seeing the world, because they're almost indoctrinated or conditioned or prisoned or scared into only looking into Islam, because they fear that if they question too much, they might leave the religion, which can be a penalty of imprisonment or death, or going to hell and being tortured mercilessly for all eternity. So there's that compassion. And the majority of victims of ISIS and other Islamist groups are Muslims. Boko Haram, which is part of ISIS too, are Muslims. The majority of victims are Muslims. So when it's concerned about Islamism, the victims, as I said, are not just non-Muslims. I know we look at, if you're non-Muslim watching this, it really tends to become a concern when we see terrorist attacks. We tend to really look at these victims, look at what they're doing. But there are Muslims, many Muslims, who are also victims as well. And so we can look at them and say, look what they're doing to these people. Because one of the things I think undercuts Islam's Islamist ideology is common humanity. Because I come to agree with Farhan Quershi, who's a fellow YouTuber, and I when I've come across it, I came across it a while ago. I didn't realize how important it is the idea that exclusivism within religion is a poison. I believe it's a poison to humanity. And also exclusivism extends beyond that. It's found in political ideologies or political parties or nations or cultures. the idea that we're supreme, we're the best. I do believe certain cultures are superior to others ethically. I do no doubt believe that. But the idea of in-group versus out-group, the idea of domination and destruction of the out-group, that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of the exclusivist mentality. Like when you have Christians who had exclusivist mentalities, they could be of their particular interpretation led to, like, you know, the Spanish Inquisition and other terrible things like that, and persecution of people who didn't follow their doctrine or their perspective of the world. And you see in Islam too, historically throughout the history of Islam, whether you believe the Hadith, the early Hadith, or actual historical events, or even just later that events that can be verified by non-Muslim sources, a lot of it is about domination, destruction of different groups, colonization, wiping out other cultures, or suppressing different interpretations of religion, etc. So basically what I'm saying is that so if we want to undercut that, I think it's time for a different approach, because what can happen is it just becomes like a cycle, right? So one group wants domination and destruction or control, then another group tries to get that, and it just keeps going and going and going, because what underlies these ideologies is exclusivism, is the desire for domination and destruction, is us versus them. So if you undercut that, then I think that can go away to hopefully preventing the rise of further groups like that. Because once common humanity becomes dominant, once common humanity, wink wink, becomes a dominant notion, once goodwill becomes a dominant notion, once universalism becomes a dominant notion, once humanism becomes a dominant notion, then there's very little room for this us versus them mentality to arise, very little room for these exclusivist religious and political interpretations to arise, which advocate the destruction and domination of other groups. It gives very little room for these things to arise. So I hope that is of insight to some people. I hope that's of use to some people. And if you do have any questions about what I'm saying, the kind of thing I'm talking about, I would advise you to go to channels like Geoff Thompson, Emanuel Swedenborg's channel, not his channel, I mean people who talk about his theology, Off the Left Eye, and Farhan Quershi, because they generally give a universalist perspective and talk as well about the psychology of human beings, and how it's good to look like this, as remove the plank in your own eye, to look in ourselves to see if we don't harbour the same kind of intent that gives rise to some of the things we see externally. Like Geoff Thompson talks about, he says that a lot of us hate fundamentalists, but we don't look at the fundamentalist intentions or values or beliefs within ourselves, and so we're part of the problem. Like, how do you? So anyway, I hope you're well. Take care.